I'm Kristen Schuyten, a physical therapist with Michigan Medicine Med Sport and with the Wellness Initiative, and I'm also a lecturer with the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Today we'll talk about cool down. So cooling down is something that tends to be very challenging to do, whether it is after class, whether we don't have time for it, after we exercise or after performance, but it's something that is very much needed, not only to restore the tissue that you just worked, all those muscles, connective tissue, everything, back to its resting length, because you just worked all those muscles, got them tight and activated. We want to make sure that we're loosening them back up so you have full range of motion available to you for the next bout of activity. Plus, it also helps to clear out any of that soreness, that lactic acid buildup, and then get your body ready for the next time that you have activity. So we're going to go through some cool down activities that you can do, ones that require just this little blueprint, footprint of space here. That's a yoga mat, things that you can do standing, things that you can do laying down, and again, all equipment that you would have available to you. So to start off first, we'll go with a few standing exercises and then go into some that are laying down. For all of these, we want to hold them for at least 20 to 30 seconds to make sure that it's not too quick of a stretch to the muscles. Otherwise, sometimes that can deliver a bit of a spasm or a tightness into the area. You don't really feel the full release. You can definitely hold any of these stretches for longer. You can hold them 30 to 60 seconds, but just be careful that if you are having to do another bout of activity that requires a lot of impact or quick, large ranges of motion after, that maybe you err on the shorter side of how long you're holding them for, because sometimes relaxation of those muscles can then hinder your body's ability to produce power and or any of those preventative types of tightness that we feel with our muscles and our tendons, to be able to give us just a warning signal that we're doing too much. Okay, so something to just think about with the cool down and then holding our stretches. So starting off standing first, the basic quad stretch that I know a lot of you are familiar with. Just a couple of tips while we're doing this. Try not to lean yourself forward or bring the knee forward, especially if you are tight in your quads and your hip flexors. If it's too much, try to play with kind of the range of motion that you have available to you, but to really make sure we're isolating in through those muscles. Squeeze your bottom and almost try to tuck your pelvis under a little bit while we're doing that, and make sure we're keeping our posture up straight. This is not a balance exercise, so feel free to hang on to something so you don't fall over, and so you can really feel like you're getting the most out of your stretching. These two should be performed after the body is warm. Okay, so after you've had a class, after you've had exercise, after you've had a performance. And usually we like to have that body be warm, trying to perform any type of cool down. Those two things happen within a 30-minute window of each other. And again, making sure that we're holding both sides while we're doing this. And you may feel that one side is tighter than the other. But again, the posture is straight up, and then we're trying to get that pelvic tilt, kind of scooping under and squeezing the glutes at the same time, so that you are feeling it. And you may feel one more down into your quad. You may feel the other higher up into your hip. Both of those are normal. It just depends on where we carry the tension in the muscles. All right. Now, similarly, we're going to work through the hip flexors. So one of your hip flexors is also a quad muscle. Again, one of the reasons why we may feel this in a little bit different positions. This one is just almost kind of like you're doing a calf stretch, which we'll get to next, but a smaller range of what the legs are separated from. From here, you're just going to, again, scoop underneath the pelvis, and then trying to feel a stretch just in the front, kind of by the groin up into the front of the hip. That's getting our psoas and our iliacus, our major hip flexors. And again, muscles that like to get very, very tight whenever we are seated for longer periods of time, but also muscles that tend to be very activated when we're looking at what we do in any type of a kicking or jumping activity. And I'm doing this on the other side as well. So holding for about the 20 to 30 seconds, really scooping underneath the pelvis, making sure posture is staying up straight. You can have a little bit of knee bend to the back knee, definitely a little bit of knee bend to the front knee. If you ever don't feel this and you want to intensify the movement, you can turn the back toe in slightly, which is going to feel really weird for all of us that like to do things turned out, but it does just wind that muscle a little bit more through the femur inside that hip socket and gives you a little bit more intense of a stretch. But again, you really have to dissociate rotating the hip inside that femur. The femur inside the hip. All right, now holding that position, but now going back to parallel, we're going to do the calf stretch. So you have two calf muscles that we're primarily going to be focusing on here, your gastrocnemius and your soleus. Your gastrocnemius is that apple that's on the back of your leg. Soleus lies underneath of it. Both of them help you go up onto the ball of your foot. So to get the gastroc, we keep heel down and we're trying to keep the knee straight. You really have to look at your toes because especially if you have tightness here, your body is going to want to let those toes come out to the side in a slight turnout. And I really want them straight front to back, okay? You might, again, feel a little stretch in the hip flexors when you do this too, depending on how tight they are. Now from here, take your knee, keep the same position, bend your knee slightly, until you feel a stretch coming more down in through by the Achilles and the lower part of the calf. And again, keeping posture up, keeping all that solid, holding for that 20 to 30 seconds and sinking down into the muscles. Really try to think about kind of the rest of your leg, relaxing as much as possible. And again, that's why it's nice to have something to hang on to, and then changing sides. First, making sure that the toes are lined up forward and that knee is straight for the gastrocnemius stretch. The gastroc stretches a little bit differently because it crosses our knee joint and then attaches down into the Achilles. So that's why we do that little different with the knee bend versus the knee straight, just because of that little different position of where it starts. And then from here, go into the knee bend to get the soleus. I know I'm much tighter on this on the left than the right, thanks to a nice little Achilles tear that I had when I was doing a LMA and a BATMA. Ended up causing me some tightness down there. So just holding that position. If this gets to be painful in any way, or if you've had a history of Achilles tendonitis, you may have to lessen how deep you're going into some of these stretches too. All right, and then finally, when we're looking at trying to stretch out through the back and then through the chest, you can do this one side or both sides at the same time. If you're doing it one side, you can take your hand into the wall and again, play with the range of motion that feels comfortable to you. You may start to feel any numbness, tingling, something coming down the arm. It just doesn't feel comfortable when you're trying to stretch in through your pec muscles. So if it gets to be too much, you can go higher, or again, you can go lower with whatever feels comfortable. Or you can also do them just both at the same time and opening up through the chest. I tend to like doing one arm at a time only because then it gives me a little bit more of an intensity. And also I can get into the biceps a little bit more as well, just right in the front of the shoulder. So if you start out with one, we'll do one on the other side. The challenge with this is that the shoulders like to creep up. So really make sure you're keeping the shoulders down. Again, the upper trapezius just likes to be invited to the party all the time. Sometimes he just has to stay home. And then depending on how you're rotating that humerus inside the shoulder joint, you can get other muscles along the way too. All right. Now I'm going to do one more standing. This is for your hamstrings. Now it's a little bit of a squatted position. So from here, when you look at your hamstring muscles, they're on the back side of your thigh, and some are on the inside, some are on the outside. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm getting all of those three muscles. So we're going to start here. You're going to have that flat back position, and then all I want you to do is you're going to sit your bottom back again. The hamstring starts right on your sits bones. And so from here, we're going to start at parallel. Now, performers, a lot of times will just do parallel. Sometimes they'll go into a turnout position, and then that's where they stop when they're doing any type of a hamstring stretch. And again, you could do this posted up onto a step, onto a chair, holding onto a wall for balance so you're not losing it. But then also try to rotate it in, okay? This tends to be an area that doesn't get a lot of love and attention. I know it's tight on me. But with that, when we look at hamstring strains, when we look at injury, those areas that tend to be a little tighter are the ones that like to get pulled too. And then doing both sides. So again, straight, holding that position first for that 20 to 30 seconds. And whether your toes are pointed or flexed, whatever feels comfortable to you. If you like the intensity of pulling the toes back towards your shin, go for it. If you want to just isolate hamstrings because you already did the calf or you got some stuff going on with your calf, then just let the ankle relax. Now rotate out. Still remember, kind of flatten that back out. tilting the pelvis gives the tension immediately to the top of the hamstring, and holding there. And then that rotation in, which you may not be able to go down as far or may feel real weird, but a good one to do for part of warm-up, for part of cool down. And I know I've had both sides pulled hamstrings, so one that I have to focus on a lot, even outside of dance-specific activities. All right, now we're gonna make our way down. So child's pose, prayer stretch. I'm sure you've seen this before. The amount of space that you open up the knees or close the knees is what's comfortable to you, how much hip mobility that you have. So just from here, we're gonna come down. I wanna do this 3 different positions. I always feel real good with how that forehead is kind of in contact with the yoga mat. So from here, we're holding that, just letting yourself relax into your shoulders, reaching forward, but still letting everything relax down into your back. And if you can't go this deep into the position, you can put any type of a yoga block or blankets, rolled up sweatshirts, anything that you have available to you for whatever feels comfortable. And then you walk the hands over to the right side to feel the stretch in through the left side body, in through the lats, oblique muscles, maybe into the side of the hip a little bit. And again, the range of motion to the right or the left that will go here is just what's comfortable to your body. Again, it is a stretch. It's not meant to be painful. It should be something that is relaxing. And just holding that position for the 20 seconds, at least 20 seconds. And then walking over to the side. Now the challenge can be sometimes that we also have some tightness in through the low back and through our QL, our quadratus lumborum. Likes to be a spot that gets really tight, especially if you have hip flexor tightness. So if that's a problem for you, you can also add in a little bit of kind of like a peek through. Get a little rotation in there too. And then you'll feel that through the trunk rotating. But again, just depends on those tight spots where you have them. I know my right likes to get tight, so I'm doing it to the left so I can stretch out the right. That's it. Now if we come down to our backs, we're going to get into the piriformis and through our glutes. So from here, again, if you don't have this much turnout available to you, you can keep it crossed over here. If for some reason you get any pinching in through your hip as you try to lift up, you can use a towel or a strap, a belt, something to be able to hook under if it's too intense in through the front of the hip. But we're just holding this. The biggest thing I want to feel here is more at the back and the side of the hip that the knee is bent and the toes are pointed more forward for. So if you're feeling it more inside the hip joint, it might be good to get checked out for that hip. And then we're just going to change positions. Again, I don't have as much available to me on that right side. I have a little bit of sacral rotation going on, so my piriformis is a smidge tighter on my right. So you can almost kind of I'm using my right arm to leverage and push it out. But again, do what feels comfortable, that gives you a stretch, not anything that's a sharper pain while we're doing this. And again, just holding it for about that 20 to 30 seconds or so. Good. Okay. All right, and last one. So when we're done with everything, just trying to stretch out in through that trapezius again. It's always just a good one to do. And as you're seated, if you want to take the opposite hand, put it underneath your hip, underneath your thigh, give a little extra stretch from the bottom up. If either this isn't comfortable or you want more stretch, you can add the arm and do it top down. And again, these can be paired with looking down for your levator scapulae in the back of the neck, or looking up for the anterior scalene, middle scalene in the front of the neck. And again, both sides. Otherwise, you feel super lopsided. This one, if I hold it for too long, turns me into a bobblehead. So hold in there for the 20 plus seconds, looking down. And then looking up, I like to put my hand more towards the front to get that kind of that fascial stretch. Awesome. Thanks very much for joining. If you have any questions or there's any little tweaks that we need to do to some of these stretches, again, these are the most common areas that we see areas of tightness for some of our movers, our performers that are out there. So if you have any other areas that you have questions about, feel free to contact us. Thank you.